So we're here. So maybe just starting the session, just taking a moment just to settle. And just finding that sense of being here. Of landing physically in this space, of actually feeling our bums on the chairs or whatever we're sat on. Taking a couple of deeper than usual breaths and allowing the body to settle a little bit on the exhale. Sometimes helpful to let out a little sigh. Becoming a bit more aware of the space around us as well. Noticing if there's any distractions. Maybe there's some background noise. Maybe the mind is busy. Just allowing ourselves a moment just to arrive. In today's session, we're going to be talking about time. And we're going to look at it from two perspectives. We're going to look at our experience of time itself, and we're going to look at our experience of the present moment. The two slightly different perspectives, which may make more sense as we go through. And I think firstly, I've sort of no doubt that we all experience this feeling that time is speeding up. That as we get older, every year seems to go a little bit quicker. And there's a joke about a toilet roll, life's like a toilet roll. The closer we get to the end, the faster it goes. And although that's quite funny, there's actually some research into that. And there was a study done on two groups. One was a group of 19 to 24-year-olds, and the other was a group of 60 to 80-year-olds. And both groups were asked to count to 3 minutes in their head. Each person in the group was timed, and the average times came in afterwards. Now, the 19 to 24-year-olds experienced 3 minutes, give or take, as 3 minutes, whereas the 60 to 80-year-olds experienced 3 minutes as around 3 minutes 40. So their version of time was going quicker than the actual time that was passing. So something to do with our internal experience of time is speeding up as we get older. So it's been proven. Our brain takes longer to process new information. So it's picking out more details, which actually slows down our experience of time. Whereas once we're familiar with an experience, the brain will just hold a concept of that experience and refer to that pre-existing experience when we see something similar. So the action of the brain is actually moving faster as we experience more and more different things. Now, there's a attitude or a principle of mindfulness which is called beginner's mind, which is a way of, it's an antidote to this. It's coming out of this automatic labeling process of the mind and coming more closer to reality and our experience. So with a beginner's mind, we're encouraged to look at things as though they've never happened before, trying to see freshness in an object like a cup, trying to see it as though we've never seen it before, taking away the labels. And it's a very subtle shift that occurs. But we start to see things as they really are, instead of these preconceived ideas or labels about the object. And we'll come on to this a little bit more later. There's another theory about time, which is that our experience of time is relative. So 1 year to a 5-year-old is 1/5, which is a rather large chunk of its life, whereas 1 year to a 50-year-old is a 50th of their life. So that actual portion of time seems less relative to the amount of time that we've been alive or experienced. And there's a theory that this is exponential. So this means that the time that we experience between the age of 5 and 10, those 5 years, is similar to the experience of between 10 and 20 years old, which is similar as the experience between 20 and 40 years old, which is the same as 40 to 80 years old. And that's when it gets quite scary. It's a shock to the system when we realize that that can be how we experience our life, that it goes that quickly, and it goes quicker as we get older. And it certainly hit me like a hammer when I read that. I was like, oh my God, this is actually happening. And rather than it be something negative, it can act as a wake-up call that, we must make the most of this precious life that we have. And we do that, most importantly, by coming into the present moment. So this means doing our best to recognize what's real here and now. And it encourages us to appreciate what we have. Maybe there's things that we're holding on to, or people that we could forgive, or people that we could let know that we love them or appreciate them. Who might we be taking for granted in our lives? Because we are all, it's a morbid thought, but we're all inevitably racing to the end. And we overlook that on a day-to-day basis. We take things for granted and we ignore the preciousness of this life that we have. So this is just really an encouragement to, for me, the main reason I practice mindfulness is to be present. It's to be here and with my life rather than lost in thoughts about my life, because they're two drastically different experiences for me. One is a whirlwind of labels, emotions, and past thinking, and the other is pure experience. So that leads us on to this other aspect of time, which is this present moment awareness. And it's almost become something of a cliche to use that word or phrase, the present moment. I mean, what does it mean? Because this perspective of time isn't actually time based. Our experience of the present moment is outside of time. But we can only experience this directly. We can't rely on thoughts about it. Because even the present moment itself can be conceptualized. We can say, oh, it's the present moment, and we form a mental image of the present moment, and we refer to that. But all that mental imagination is happening in a space which is here and now. And we're often leaving this here and now to go into the mind-made version of stuff. Welcome, Kathleen. Now, there's very much, good reasons to do this. The brain can save energy by using mental constructs. That's probably how we've survived so long. We don't, or probably didn't have the luxury as we evolved to be treating each moment anew, because if we see a threat, we have to act on that based on previous experience. So inbuilt in our evolutionary DNA is this automatic judging and conceptual reality, which is very helpful. But it's also nice to learn that we can drop into the depths of this moment rather than being lost in the linear form of time. We can drop into this present moment, which is observably outside of time, because there's nothing about this moment that has any time value to it at all. This moment is never ending. It's a field. It's an open space, and it has no boundaries other than what we can think. We can think in measurements of time. We can think in past and future, and that's valuable. But to actually experience it like we smell our dinner or like we touch our hands, that's a perceptual experience. We can't do that with time. So in a sense, time is an illusion, because it doesn't appear in the way that we think it appears. We don't have to ignore that time is a real thing, or the effects of time are real. We know this because we grow and we watch leaves fall off a tree, and well, everything in life is based around this form of time. But yet in our own experience, in our own direct experience, we cannot see it, we cannot find it. And at the heart of this present moment awareness is a form of peace. It's not something that we have to go searching for. In fact, that searching is the opposite of it. When we go searching for a different experience, then we're leaving this moment, we're leaving now in search of something better. Or the mind is. We can never leave this moment. That's the ironic thing. And Eckhart Tolle actually says this. He uses a fish in the sea to as an analogy for this. And he says when we're looking for being or this sense of presence is like it's like a fish swimming around in the sea looking for the water. And he jokes, he's saying, you know, where is it? I've looked everywhere for the water and I can't find it. And it's much like us with this sense of being or presence or awareness. It's right in front of our faces. So that leads us into the practice of meditation and mindfulness and why it's so helpful to practice this stuff. And given the emphasis from the start of the talk, you know, how quickly time can go, it's so important that we embrace this tool and this habit of coming back home, because when we come back to the present moment, we're not lost in this mental comparison or mental formations of time. We're experiencing now. And it's the mental formations of time that speed up, because it's today compared to yesterday, or this year, the length of this year compared to when I was 10. But that's all mind-made stuff. And actually, if we look closely, we see time is really only a form of thinking. It's a form of thought. But the practice of mindfulness enables us to become familiar with this habit of the mind, that we sit here and we sit on the breath or with the body, and we notice very quickly that the mind bounces off into thinking. And we go, oh, I didn't actually mean to do that. So what's actually happening here? I'm sitting here attempting to focus on the breath, yet every 10 seconds, every second, every 20 seconds, whatever it is, the mind bounces into thinking. So there's an element of witnessing what the mind's doing. And the more familiar we become with that, the more it reveals itself, the clearer that activity becomes, the more we can see when we're being lost in stories rather than grounded in reality. But rather than me continue to talk about that, I think we will get into a meditation practice. So there was a request last week to talk about posture, so I will just briefly go over meditation posture for those who are new to the practice or have never been taught how to sit for a meditation. It's worth just knowing a couple of things. And the first thing is there's no perfect posture to meditate in. And we can meditate in any posture. We can meditate walking, we can meditate sitting down, lying down, folded in half. So this isn't an obstacle to meditation. This is, if you want to sit in meditation and you're finding it difficult, then there's a few little things that we can apply which might help it. There's the saying I often use at the beginning of a meditation is a relaxed yet alert posture. So we want to be relaxed in the body, so we feel at ease and at home in our body, so we're not creating unnecessary tension. But we don't want to be so relaxed that we start to swoon in and out of sleep and lose our attention. We can do that if we're really tired. That's, you know, sometimes we don't actually have a choice, it just comes over us. But if we can set up our posture in the beginning, we reduce the chances of that happening. So I'm going to generalize here, most Westerners have stiff hips. So to sit cross-legged on the floor is probably not the most helpful position. There are various other positions, and I'll just go through a couple now. One would be seated. So I'll just pull my chair in. This is probably the best one to do for a beginner. This is where we have feet on the floor, generally knees lower than the hips fixed. And then we can start to attend to the spine. Now the spine we want to be neutral, which means following its natural curves. And for me, the easiest way to do this is just to lift the top and back of my head. And in doing so, the spine naturally straightens and I naturally draw my chin in. Then I can relax my shoulders. My hands just resting on my thighs. But we can put the hands on our lap or we can hold them upwards. But essentially we're creating some straightness in the spine and we're allowing then the body to relax around it. And that's a good posture. If you have back problems, there's no problems in supporting the lower back. So that can be useful as well. One problem with sitting straight on the floor, and I don't have particularly mobile hips for this, I've got long old legs, is when we sit cross-legged, if our hips aren't flat or our knees can't open up, then our hips are pushed backwards like this, and then we have to lean forwards to compensate for the balance. This can either lead us to become drowsy, leaning forward, or spending a hell of a lot of energy having to stay upright. So if you want to sit on the floor and you don't have the flexibility in your hips to open all the way up, something underneath the hips can help. And that then enables the hips to the pelvis to turn forward and gives us a naturally straighter spine. And this is a posture that I use regularly as a supported seating position. But my favourite is the one I'm using today. I'm doing the teachings on is this little stool. And this one, if I can get this right, this is just like, it's almost like halfway between sitting on the chair and kneeling, and it enables us to be really comfortable in the hips. We can change the angle of our pelvis to keep our spine neutral, and then we can be nice and tall as well. And that's the posture I use. I do recommend that if you do want to play with positions. This Seisan, it's called, I think, the stool. Anyway, slightly off the track, but I had prepared that for the people last time who said they were having trouble with sitting. So, the importance of posture in a meditation is the body is the foundation of our practice. This is like the body's like a mountain resting on the ground. And if the body is stable, if our foundation is stable, then it's much easier for the mind to be stable. We say body resting on the ground and mind resting in the body. If the body is balancing uncomfortably, then the mind will be following that as well. Or it's very difficult not to. So we'll do a meditation, and we're going to be focusing on this idea of a beginner's mind, this principle or attitude of mindfulness. So allowing the sound of the bell to find us where we are now. Noticing we don't have to do anything at all to receive that sound. That sound's just arising all by itself. Checking in with the posture, running through that little checklist we just did then, is my foundation strong? Am I stable on the ground? Is my spine straight? Are my shoulders relaxed? Remembering it's perfectly okay to adjust our position during the practice, but we're encouraged to do so with full awareness of what we're doing, mindfully adjusting our position. Taking a moment to reflect on our motivation for being here today. What is it that brings us to meditation? We'll all have our very own reasons. It might be a social reason, it might be to help with mental health, it might be to become more aware. We might have more than one reason, or we might not quite know. We acknowledge that and we let that go. And we begin to bring our awareness to the breath. And we narrow our awareness like a torchlight onto the area of the body where we feel breathing the most. That might be in the nose. We might feel air moving in and out of the nose. And if so, we just stay here with that sensation. We may feel it a bit deeper in the throat or the chest or the belly. We may have a general sense of the body breathing. So however that is, doing our best to commit our awareness to that area. And we're feeling the breath. We're feeling the sensation, the movement, any temperature changes. And as we hold our attention on the breath, we will notice that the mind isn't too keen on this. It will bounce into some form of thinking. The mind often picks up a thought and then starts to run away with it. And before we know it, we're off in some fantasy land in the mind. So as soon as we notice that, we might notice it straight away. We might be halfway down the road before we notice it. Doesn't matter. The important thing is that in this moment, we're aware and we're present. So we simply return our awareness back to that breath. And it's helpful to lengthen the breath, to build a nice even rhythm of flow with the breath. So the inhale and the exhale are a similar length. It may be helpful to count the inhale, maybe 3 or 4 on the inhale, and then to match that on the exhale. Nice long, slow, deep and gentle breathing. And accepting if the mind wanders, that's a totally normal part of the meditation. And in that moment of noticing, then we take gratitude in that moment of mindfulness. In that moment of noticing, we're at home. And we do our best to stay here. And we can allow the breath to return to its natural rhythm, its natural flow, letting go of any counting or controlling the breath. Instead, we're bringing that awareness to the sensations in the body as we exhale. Noticing how the shoulders want to let go, the belly relaxes. Maybe we sink a little deeper into the chair. And we can use that awareness of the body to scan. We can start in the feet, aware of what it feels like to have feet. Are they resting on the floor or contacted by clothing? Shoes, maybe. Just receiving any sensations at all in the area of the feet. And moving that awareness up from the feet, through the ankles, into the lower leg. Noticing what sensations are available here. Then from the lower leg through the knees into the thighs. Noticing if there's any sensations at all, any contact of clothing. Can we feel the chair under our legs? Moving up through the hips, the weight of the body on the chair, up into the belly and the lower back area. Noticing if there's any sensations or absence of sensation. We can come up against blanks quite often during a body scan, so where we don't actually have any connection with that body part. And that's totally normal. Scanning the awareness from the belly and lower back up the spine, into the back, the chest, the shoulder area. Picking up any sensations in the chest or the shoulders or the upper back. Maybe some tingling or tension. Some warmth or coolness. Scanning from the shoulders down, the upper arms, through the elbows, through the forearms, into the hands and fingers. Noticing any aliveness in the hands. Noticing if we can feel the hands from within. Any sense of feeling the inner body. Maybe we just feel the outside contact of the air or clothing or other body parts. And following that same awareness of the inner body, up the arms, shoulders, neck, into the head, noticing any space behind the eyes. Any sensations on the outside of the head, the face. Maybe offering a gentle smile to the mouth. And a smile to the inner body. Becoming aware of the whole body, however that appears to us. aware of space around the body. And coming to rest here. So simultaneously aware of the breath, the body, and the space that we rest in. And whenever we become distracted, if we go into thinking, get lost in thought, we just come back home to the breath. And we can spend a bit of time with the breath. Just to fully land. Can we treat that breath like it's the first time we've ever breathed in? Bringing that sense of freshness and wonder to the miracle of breathing. And we rest again with the breath. Rest with the body. And rest in this space. Noticing if the mind is chatting, what kind of commentary might be happening. Common thoughts like, I'm not getting this right, or I'm too distracted, my body's uncomfortable, it's too distracting, my mind's too active, I'm not doing it properly. These are very common appearances during our meditation. So whatever that is, we notice it. We notice it's another thought. The thought that I'm not getting it right. The thought I'm too distracted. Whatever it is, we name it. And then we return gently back into this breathing body, without judgment, without expectation. Maybe we can notice this ever-changing experience. Whether it's thoughts or sensations or feelings, emotions. Now that's always changing, but changing against the backdrop of this open spaciousness. And as we approach the end of this practice, taking a moment just to dedicate some peace and kindness to whoever may be in need of it in this moment. It would be helpful to bring the hand to the chest or hold the opposite hand. Sending that peace and kindness out to people that we know and to people that we don't know. And even back onto ourselves. And allowing the sound of the bell again to find us where we are.